Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Balancing Act. A special guest for you, Robin Kencel. Robin, nice to see you, my friend.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Moments ago, I said, what is your title again? She said, well, I do a lot of different things. You have mastered a lot.
I have.
Five different professions?
5 different professions.
Yes.
I do have a theory, and I violated it myself, that every 10 years I wanted to make a change because I just think adding more skills is helpful, and you bring things along with you.
One thing that you have mastered, I think, is aging with purpose.
Yes.
That has kind of been a lot of what you speak about, and you're kind of making the rounds. You're from Connecticut, now live in Florida. When did this whole mission to share that aging with purpose is important, when did that begin?
You know, it's interesting because my whole life I have, without thinking about it, lived in these buckets. Because I've always been a dancer, I've been very conscious about being fit and what I put in my body and all that, and just taking care of my body. And along the way, I'm a philosopher. I was a philosophy major. I'm always thinking about relationships and, you know, how to be better in my relationships. And it probably comes because for me, everything's centered on God and just pleasing God. And so all that's always been in place. And then as I've gotten older, I've just seen, you know, things fall apart a little bit. But it all started coming together with this Aging with Purpose in the Miss Senior America pageant.
I love that.
Because the pageant, luckily, we're not doing swimsuits.
Although I will say Martha Stewart is a vision. When she was on, was it Sports Illustrated? It was a magazine. She was on, and I thought, wow, she does look amazing.
Yeah.
As you do, Robin.
Thank you. But in that pageant, here's what you're judged on. You're judged on the interview, and it's 5 judges. And then you're judged on your talent. And this was really exciting this year because never in 50 years did they have a male perform on the stage. But I petitioned them to follow Miss America and have my male ballroom dance partner with me. So that was the first time. And I had so much fun performing to a Michael Bublé Cry Me a River because it was really gutsy and emotional. And then after that, there's the gown walk, and they don't care about the gown, they care about how you carry yourself. But the best part for me was the philosophy of life. And that's where you have 35 seconds, no more, no less, to give your philosophy of life to the audience. And it took me so much time to distill, you know, what you really believe in life and what's most important in 35 seconds. And that got me thinking about other people and what they think. And so I just started asking folks over 50 years old, what's your philosophy of life? And then that led me to, what do you think the meaning of life is? What is your calling?
So what were some of the things that you heard from some of those people? What was the meaning of life, and what was their thought process on aging?
Yeah. It's interesting because some people talk a lot about happiness. And I see being happy very different than being joyful. So we could come back to that. But a lot of people talked about being happy and family and friends and a meaningful career. And then there are people who really want more. Like, what do I want to leave behind? And folks would talk about their legacy and how they're living, particularly in their second chapter, in a way that when they're not here, what do they want their children to remember about them?
And when you talk about legacy, I think it's important too. You have a grandchild.
I do.
Yes.
We do. Our first one, and he just hit 1.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
One of these sweet days, you're going to be able to look at your grandchild and you're going to get to say, hey, I was in the Miss Senior America pageant.
Exactly. Look at these photos. Can you believe that Birdie looked like this? Because that's what they call me, Birdie.
Oh, I love that. Okay, let's back up a little bit if we can, and how we got to this point. You're from Connecticut, lived there up until recently.
Up until very recently.
And then you went to Georgetown?
I went to Georgetown undergrad. I was a philosophy major. I thought I was going to be a nun.
Oh.
And so I actually went and lived with nuns in Augusta, Georgia. And I learned that I am not really well behaved in a community.
So what was it about the nunnery that hooked you initially?
I've always just had a deep knowledge of God. And I felt that this is how he made me, to serve that way. I think I had visions of either The Flying Nun or, The Sound of Music.
That was a very popular show. Still is in some households, yes.
Yeah, but that wasn't, as it turned out, what I found out I should be doing. And so from there, I went to Northwestern's Kellogg School of Business and got a business degree. Because when you come out of school, undergrad, with a philosophy degree, you might be a good thinker and you might know how to think about problems, but I'm not sure you really have something that's marketable.
I actually think the fact that you have that background is really impressive, because I think a lot of life is critical thinking.
Yes.
And maybe that has helped you in the long run, now looking back, really critical think about all these different professions you've had.
Yes.
So real estate agent, right? In Connecticut,
Yes.
but not anymore?
So I just gave that up in Connecticut because I'm in Florida. I do have my license in Florida, and I'm going to be doing a tweak on that, a little bit different.
Yeah.
But I was in corporate America right out of Kellogg. And, I did Johnson & Johnson, incredible company, to go after healthcare products because of my healthcare background. And then I went to Clairol because I wanted to see the glamour industry, and worked on Final Net hairspray and Clairol herbal essence.
Thank you for that, by the way. That was a gift.
Yeah.
That is your legacy, one of your legacies, leaving behind that beautiful thing for the rest of us.
Oh, leaving behind mousse.
Yes.
Can you believe I brought out mousse?
Yeah,
That was crazy.
it's back, actually, yes, in big
With
ways.
a different name.
Yeah.
And then I went to Dixie Cups and worked on, a generic product.
Yeah.
And I was always renovating homes while I was doing this because honestly, my husband and I had no money and lots of debt coming out of law school for him and business school for me.
Yeah.
In fact, my first house I bought on my MasterCard with a down payment, $3,500. Take my MasterCard, I'll take that townhouse. It's being developed.
Oh my goodness, it would be hard to do that these days.
Impossible.
Yeah.
Impossible. And I just tweaked a few things. I think salmon was a big color, so I'm like, I'll put in salmon carpets. And then I turned around and sold it and made $35,000.
Wow.
And that went into my next. So one of my passions is renovating historic homes. And I always do that alongside of everything else. So, it's just keeping things juggling.
So when you talk about aging with purpose, I think you've mentioned a couple different things. Legacy, you've kind of dabbled into a couple of different things, made sure that something was always piquing your interest.
Yes.
And following maybe like a purpose, if you will, because then you feel like you're, I guess, investing in something.
So I think there's two elements. One is what you do. And, if you can take things that you're good at or skills that you can develop with things that you're interested in, then that I think is really good in terms of what you're doing. But the other thing that's important, and this is where really not just aging with purpose, but living with purpose, is how you do what you're doing. And that's something that I've always been conscious of, and I'm even more conscious of. How are we interacting? How are you feeling about our conversation? And, are you impacting me in a positive way? Am I impacting you? It's that whole kindness bubble. And I think as the world gets more complicated and there's so much stress, that's more and more important.
And so when you talk about how we communicate and how that affects like our relationship, let's say for us, for example, if somebody is watching and they say, well, how do I do that? How do I begin that process to say, okay, I don't know how to do this thing called life and find purpose?
Yeah. The first thing I would say is become a noticing person. Notice, and you don't have, it's whatever you think is bigger than yourself, because all world religions and 75 to 80% of people believe that we were actually made in the image and likeness of something bigger than ourselves. So let's notice that love fest up there. Where is it around us? So just become more noticing. You walk out the door, just say, what am I noticing that's beautiful, that makes me have awe? So I think that's one thing that helps you move towards being more purpose-oriented. And the other thing, which I've just learned more in the last year, because I took up improvisational acting when I broke my foot last year, is listening. Improv is all about micro-listening. So don't talk so much. Just listen. I mean, I'm learning that every week. If my acting coach says one more time, I don't think you needed to say all that.
Well, and I think we learn that as parents. as well. I have 3 teenagers, and so learning to listen to them has been something that I've had to learn to do, because as parents, I just want to, don't do this, don't do that. But listening to what they're telling me, either with their body language or anything else. Something else you mentioned earlier too, that I think we should touch on is relationships. You mentioned how important relationships are. So you mentioned the noticing, getting out and noticing something.
Yes.
How do we improve those relationships with people to age with purpose and gracefully?
Yeah. Well, I will say one thing, and you're going to find this, I think, down the line. When you've got kids in school, you get all these friends because of your kids' friends' parents. And then when you get to my age, I'm 67, when you get to those 60s and all of a sudden you're not anchored maybe in an office or in your career or all the things, your church, people are moving, you're moving, I'm moving. I start really looking at the quality of my relationships and who are the people that I think are feeding me and being helpful to me and vice versa. I've never been so surprised as in this last year when I let a couple of clients go in real estate, and I didn't even realize all the stress I was carrying by just letting people who, maybe aren't toxic, but are just not helpful in helping you grow into the person that you want to be.
Yeah, I've recently learned too. There's like a group of moms at my son's school that I feel like for the first time in a really long time, somebody is sewing into our relationships. Like in our group text, there's sewing. There's not just a taking from that relationship. And I think you go, oh wow, then this is fruitful.
Yeah. Yes.
That is working, and you start to realize maybe as your kids get older or as you age, that there are those relationships that you want to be fruitful.
I'm really enjoying the 30s. Like the dance world is all the 30s. The improv world is all the 30s.
And they keep you young.
So young.
Right?
And you get back to your silly self. My acting coach always goes, there's a pizza, Robin. I don't think people see the pizza, Robin. And I would say, anybody listening or watching, bring out your pizza self.
Yeah. And when you talk about pizza self and the acting portion of who you now have become and are continuing to become, that has to shift your vision too, right? Looking forward. Okay, who am I going to be, or who do I want to become?
Right. Right. And the fun thing is, I think your core and your values, hopefully you know them and you aren't going to change that piece of you, but the way you live them out and the things you do, it will really add a lot of, I think, vitality if you just keep bringing yourself into new situations.
Interesting as we kind of move forward. We were talking just a moment ago during the break about your a spiritual director. Is that right?
Yes. So what a spiritual director is, let me say what it's not. It's not therapy. It's not Bible study. It is someone who's trained, and it's a 4-year program, usually, to walk beside a person who wants to get closer to God. Oh. And what I do is I help you notice where God is in your life. And we meet once a month for 45 minutes, and you don't even have to come in saying, oh, here's what I did in terms of my practices. I prayed. Sometimes people like to come in with their checklist.
Yeah.
I did the rosary. I went to mass. It's like, no, I'm not here to score you. No, tell me, come in, just tell me what happened in the last 48 hours.
What did you notice?
Yeah.
Right.
What's sticking with you? Sometimes it could be just like a problem with a coworker or a child that just isn't flying right and it's just weighing on you. And then I'll listen and I'll ask a question and we'll see what's God up to in your life? And I've had a spiritual director for probably 30 years, 40 years, on and off. And it's funny, it's like one of those things where you don't know you swam way down the river, but all of a sudden you're down at the ocean and you're looking way back.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too. It's with the Jesuits, right?
Yes, with the Jesuits.
It's within the Catholic Church. Is that correct?
Well, the spiritual direction I am doing is trained from the Jesuits and the Catholic faith. There's lots of spiritual directors of every faith, and I could really meet with anyone. Most of my directees are Catholic or Christian.
Okay.
And or Christian.
So when we talk about the aging purpose, I feel like let's take the Bible, for example. you find people in the Bible that are, I mean, how old was Noah? Like, it's like
way old, really old.
Really old, like hundreds and hundreds of years. So I think it's really interesting that you also are kind of focused on this aging with purpose. When you have some of your clients that come to you and they're more mature, I like
all of them are,
and they say, how do I do this, Robin? How do I do this? Do you find that it's difficult or easy, or how are people adjusting?
I think people are making it harder than maybe it needs to be. There's a lot of anxiety around getting more mature or living longer, you know, because there's so much more uncertainty. Like, you have a game plan when you're your age. You know, you've got the job, you're a parent, and the kids are, it's all very structured. But when you get to maybe being retired or semi-retired and people are moving away and you're no longer parenting people in the home, maybe someone's passed away, all of a sudden that footing is very uneven, and so that brings up the anxiety. And what a lot of my directees are, you know, really grappling with is, what's important to me? Where am I putting my energy? Why am I here? How can I get closer to God? So those are the kinds of questions that come up a lot, and that's what we walk down a path and we see what's happening month to month.
What can you share with people who are younger about preparing for that stage of life to age with purpose?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would say, you know, let's be practical on some things that we can control. So we can make choices with our body so that as we get older, our body can be in as good shape as possible. Because I will say, I've had 2 hips replaced. Last year I had sciatica for 6 months. When you're in chronic pain, you know, I can't think of anything else but my chronic pain.
Right.
And I think that happens to a lot of people. So the better you take care of yourself, then you're just going to enter those years being able to do more.
So let's ask, you're a dancer.
I'm a ballroom dancer.
And so when you had both hips replaced, you had the sciatica, then what was that mind shift like? Because then you shifted into improvisation, is that correct?
So here's what happened. 10 years ago, I'm in a competition in Puerto Rico, and all of a sudden my hip is hurting. And I don't think anything of it. I think it's a move. But long story short, I had to get the whole hip replaced like immediately, because 3 days later I couldn't even walk. And, you know, I had 14 weeks when I wasn't dancing. When you define yourself by something and now you can't do it, that really could send you somewhere. I always look at these setbacks as, what else can I be doing? What should I be doing? And I do that. I shifted that. I mean, that's how I ended up in the improv last time. And what I would say is, as we do get older, some people hit these chronic illness points or hit these whatever points, and they let it define them. And, you know, I mentioned before my friend who, well, she has MS, the one who with the B therapy.
Yeah.
She got MS at 45. She has the most positive mindset. And she was an lifetime editor at the LA Times.
Wow.
Fitness and lifetime editor. And now she's all about teaching people about bee therapy and the power of bees. So it's taking what's been given to you at that moment and using it for good.
You know, I've heard somebody say, and I don't remember who it was, but like sometimes your setback can be your set up.
Yes.
To your next chapter.
Yes. Yes. And I can think of a number of people which, you know, have had, like the painter who all of a sudden had an eye cancer, and how that totally changed the way she viewed the world. So a lot of it is mindset, and mindset is another thing you can control.
And speaking of mindset, I wanted to tackle the idea of you being in a pageant and talk about this for a quick moment, because I think it's, as especially women, as we age, we think, oh, well, you know, full transparency, like I've had a few friends have full facelifts. And I had this conversation with my 13-year-old, and she's like, would you ever do that? And I was like, I don't know if I could, but to each his own, right? But aging with grace and purpose, there is something as women that it does to our psyche, I feel like, when we age. How are we able to tackle that? that?
Yeah. It's interesting. For the pageant, I had a photography session, of course, and it was with a very, very well-known fashion photographer. And I interviewed him a little bit about, you see these beautiful women all the time, and, what are you seeing with how they think about themselves? One of his clients is a 90-year-old still model, and he said,
my goodness.
You know what? It's in here. Of course, we don't like to see the wrinkles and such, but it's really in here how you feel about yourself. It's what's going to come out. What would you rather be? A wrinkly woman who's exuding joy and grace, or a woman who's had the full facelift and looks flawless, but is exuding something that's kind of, shrivelly and not so kind?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too that it goes back to the idea that your inside beauty, it's what we try to teach our kids, right? Like your inside beauty should radiate through the outside.
Yeah. And you mentioned the pageant. It was interesting. So we had almost all 50 states represented. I think we had 48. And there were all kinds of women there for all different reasons. And I have to say, for 5 days in the Tropicana Hotel in Atlantic City, you could not believe how well we all got along.
Wow.
There was such an energy of not competition, but all for one and one for all.
Yeah.
And there wasn't any talk about beauty and like we were all doing our makeup and going, love your gown, but it wasn't about that. It was more like just saying, yay for us that we're throwing ourselves out on the stage.
What a beautiful thing, right?
Yes.
Was that difficult for you in the beginning to do? You'd mentioned you had done a pageant earlier, like maybe in college.
Yeah,
or
in
something.
college.
How did you get into the senior pageant?
It was totally accidental as things like that happen. 2 of my clients in real estate were actually doing a Miss USA pageant, and I'm watching them, and they're having so much fun, and they've got this coaching team, and I thought, another opportunity to put myself under pressure that I could bring to my ballroom world and my performance world. So I didn't think much about it. I just Googled pageants for women over 60.
Oh, you were looking for the challenge.
I'm always looking for a challenge.
So great. That is another thing, right?
Yeah.
As we age, looking for a new challenge.
Yeah. And I think that's a good mindset. Don't be afraid to fall off the cliff. Just be sure that you've got a parachute on your back. That's I never thought about that, but I think that's kind of how I live my life.
Yeah. When you think about that, how did you raise your kids maybe to have that mindset as a mother?
I think resiliency is everything. And we really focused on that in raising our 2 children is, not that, who cares if you fail? Let's see what you learned from it. And I'm very big on having contingency plans. So everything is not going to go your way. I always tell our kids, if you think everything's going to go your way or you're looking for a perfect week, then you're not going to be happy in life.
Yeah.
It's not about having things go your way. It's just, what do you do with what comes your way?
And I think it's back to the relationships point that you kind of mentioned in the beginning, because we're relating to people every day, whether or not you're in the workplace or at school or wherever you are. And so you can't control anybody else. You can only control yourself.
Yes.
And so that is challenging also at any age, I guess.
Yeah. But it's also freeing. When you just realize, I can't control my kids, I can't control my partner, I can't control my work people, all of a sudden the responsibility is taken off you, don't you think?
I think so too. When you think, when I think about all the different things that you do in life, what do you think about the future when you look 5 years ahead, or what do you hope to do next?
It's very funny because while some people I know like that week in between Christmas and January 1 for just whatever, I always use it, I'm such a weirdo, as a planning week. And I really do kind of map out what are my key things that I want for the year. But, as I get older, that list has gotten shorter because I like the idea that I'm not so programmed.
Yeah.
I've had so many years where we all have had to be so programmed and had so many responsibilities. 5 years out, I'm really hoping that I remain healthy, that I'm still dancing, that my interior life and what's most important to me just continues to grow deeper and deeper.
Is there, I was watching a video, and we just have a quick minute here left, but a quote that you live by.
Yeah, the Mother Teresa quote?
Yeah.
Oh, I just think it's everything. Because I love it, because for many years I thought I could do great things, but we all can't do great things. We're not called to do great things, but every single one of us can do small things with great love. And I think living with that mindset every day, like, we could go to bed and sleep really deeply and well.
Yeah, and because I think as long as you're working every day to make what you do special, or you can leave a lasting legacy on somebody just by saying good morning or hi, or how's your day, because maybe no one has ever talked to them that way before.
And maybe no one's ever listened to the answer.
That's true. That, back to the listening.
Right?
Yes. How can we find out more about you, Robin?
Probably the two easiest ways are Instagram at Robin Kencel, and my website, robinkencel.com.
Do you make the rounds and do things, special speaking engagements or things like that as well?
Oh, yeah. No, it's lots of fun, and thank you so much. I appreciate
goodness.
that.
And thank you. What a wealth of knowledge you've been, and best of luck to you in the future in Florida with your new grandbaby. That's going to be wonderful to spend time with family.
It will. And to you with teenagers. Those years, that's all we can do is laugh and keep coloring our gray hair.
Yeah. And if you have teenagers, you know what we're talking about. Robin, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching.